maintenance-free hydraulic valve lifters. 2 balancer shafts with cast iron counterweights rotate in opposite directions at twice the crankshaft speed for smooth engine running. Engine timing is effected via 2 maintenance-free timing chains. One timing chain drives the camshafts. The second chain drives the balancer shafts and coolant pump. Hydraulic chain tensioners ensure a maintenance-free precision chain drive. For the first time, the reference point for adjusting the timing on this engine is TDC of the 4th cylinder. For this purpose, the marking on the timing case must align with the notch on the torsional vibration damper. And the cams of the 4th cylinder must point upwards. The individual chain links are colour-coded only for adjusting the timing. This applies when fitting the chains for the first time. The coloured chain links have no significance once the engine has been cranked. Engine timing is checked using the special service tool KM6148. The DIS ignition module with integrated spark plug connectors will be familiar from other engines. To meet the stringent limit values of the Euro 4 exhaust emissions standard, the engine installation has been turned through 180 degrees. This means that the exhaust manifold lies protected behind the engine and the catalytic converters reach their operating temperature much quicker. The concept also features the additional use of a so-called starting catalytic converter, controlled via 2 oxygen sensors. The first oxygen sensor is for mixture control. The second sensor monitors the operation and efficiency of the main catalytic converter. This data, along with other data, is used by the onboard diagnosis system for diagnosis and controlling of the engine. The injectors are located beneath the fuel distributor pipe directly in the cylinder head. Part of the exhaust gas is fed through an integral duct in the cylinder head via the exhaust gas recirculation valve, and from there on through the exhaust gas recirculation pipe into the intake manifold. The intake manifold itself is made of plastic. The seal with the cylinder head consists of 4 rubber rings and a blue blow-by gasket at the center of the intake manifold. The engine control unit is flanged directly to the intake manifold. The two-part cylinder block comprises cylinder block and cylinder block base plate that virtually enclose the crankshaft. The two sections of the cylinder block can only be changed as a pair. The cylinder block is fitted with dry liners that cannot be renewed separately. Adjacent to the oil supply and coolant ducts, the ducts for crankcase ventilation are cast into the cylinder block. The single-piece aluminium oil pan has a rivet-mounted oil baffle plate with integrated oil intake pipe. Integrated into the oil pan is a dynamic oil level control. Special routing of the oil returns enhances oil separation. The oil pump is integrated into the timing case. A 7-notch sensor disc for the crankshaft pulse pickup is fitted to the crankshaft. Depending on the type of vehicle, oil changes are carried out after every 15,000 or 30,000 kilometres or once a year. Use special service tool KM6150 to renew the paper replacement cartridge. The oil filter housing features a bypass valve in the cover. A special feature of the coolant circuit is that when coolant is added, it first enters the radiator, from where it proceeds to the engine. As a result, the thermostat is located in the coolant circuit return line. On this engine, the coolant pump is exposed. Due to the modified flow in the cooling system, it must be ensured that the coolant hose is correctly positioned on the thermostat housing. Because of the special features of light alloy engines, a minimum quantity of coolant must always be present in the cooling system to prevent damage occurring. A new silicate-based coolant is used, which must not be mixed with other coolants. Coolant and water must be mixed at a ratio of at least 70 to 30. The Z22 SE features a maintenance-free ribbed V-belt with automatic tensioner. In addition to the familiar tools, operations on the Z22 SE require the use of 14 new special service tools. In general, all coolants, sealants and lubricants must be used as indicated in the service literature. All bolts must be tightened to the specified torque values and, if necessary, rotation angle. For improved demonstration of required service operations, the engine has been removed and fluids drained. First, turn the engine in the direction of engine rotation to the 4th cylinder TDC position. The marking on the timing case and the notch on the torsional vibration damper must be aligned. Remove the 4 bolts and take out the ignition module. Undo the 5 outer bolts on either side. And 4 inner bolts. And lift off the cylinder head cover. If the engine is positioned with the first cylinder at TDC and not the 4th cylinder, the engine must be turned a further 360 degrees at the torsional vibration damper. The cams of the 4th cylinder should now point upwards. Attach special service tool KM6148. The pins should now fit into the large bores in the camshaft sprockets. If this is the case, remove the camshaft timing chain tensioner. Remove the upper sliding rail. Remove the exhaust camshaft sprocket. To release the sprocket, counter-hold at the camshaft hexagon. Mark the running direction of the ribbed V-belt. Tension the tensioner using special service tool KM6151 and take off the ribbed V-belt. Remove the tensioner. Using counterholder KMJ38122A and extension KM956-1, release and remove the torsional vibration damper. Remove the cover screw. In order to take out the upper bolt of the camshaft timing chain guide rail. Remove the 10 timing case bolts. Because of its length when installed, removal of the coolant pump bolt will necessitate lowering the engine a little on some types of vehicle. Remove the timing case and gasket. Using a cloth, close off the aperture in the cylinder block base plate. Behind a cover in the timing case is the oil pump. Remove the camshaft timing chain guide rail. followed by the camshaft timing chain tension rail. To release the camshaft sprocket, counter hold at the camshaft hexagon. Remove the timing chain together with the camshaft sprocket. First, loosen the 4 Torx bolts from the cylinder head. Then, in the sequence shown, release the 10 cylinder head hexagon bolts, initially by 90 degrees. The cylinder head must only be removed when the engine is cold, in other words, at room temperature. On the second round, unscrew the bolts by 180 degrees. Finally, lift off the cylinder head. Clean the sealing surfaces and bores. And check the cylinder block and cylinder head for plane surface. Before mounting the cylinder head, ensure that the engine is at TDC. That the marking on the balancer shaft timing chain sprocket is at 6 o'clock. And that the cams of the 4th cylinder point upwards. A new cylinder head gasket must always be used. Pay attention to the centering sleeves when fitting it. Tighten the new cylinder head bolts in the sequence shown, applying the torques and angles of rotation specified in the service literature. Recut the threads and fit the 4 timing case Torx bolts using screw locking compound. The reference points for fitting the timing chains are marked by coloured chain links. Fit the timing chain from above. To mount the camshaft sprockets, the ridges on the camshaft sprocket must engage in the camshaft groove. Fit the timing chain onto the intake side camshaft sprocket and attach the camshaft sprocket to the camshaft. The copper-coloured chain link must be positioned against the INT marking for intake. This is also identified by the diamond. Tighten the new bolt, applying the required torque and angle of rotation. Attach the guide rail. And mount the tension rail. Fit the upper guide rail bolt. Fix the chain at the marking on the camshaft timing chain sprocket using a plastic wedge. Fit the torsional vibration damper. And eliminate the slack in the timing chain between the intake side camshaft sprocket and the chain sprocket. Insert the exhaust camshaft sprocket into the timing chain. Turn the exhaust camshaft at the hexagon until the ridges on the sprocket are seated in the guide on the camshaft. The colour-coded chain link must be positioned against the EXH marking for exhaust and the triangle. Tighten the new bolt, applying the required torque and angle of rotation. Another method of installing the camshaft timing chain begins after mounting the intake side sprocket. For this purpose, special service tool KM6148 is fitted. Fix the intake camshaft sprocket in place using the special service tool. Fit the chain at the marking on the camshaft timing chain sprocket after mounting the guide rail and tension rail. Insert the exhaust camshaft sprocket into the timing chain with the EXH marking positioned against the colour-coded chain link. Turn the exhaust camshaft until the ridges on the sprocket are seated in the guide on the camshaft. The special service tool's second pin will now fit too. Then recut the threads and fit the upper sliding rail using screw locking compound. By turning it clockwise, lock the internal piston of the chain tensioner on the last notch. Insert the chain tensioner using new seal rings. It's released automatically when the engine is started. Remove the wedge and the cloth. Important. After installing the chain tensioner and removing the wedge, The colour-coded chain links must be in alignment with the markings on the sprockets. If this is not the case, the timing chain must be refitted. Now, remove the crankshaft seal ring and fit the timing case with a new gasket. Fit protective sleeve KM6105 onto the crankshaft journal. Slide the new silicone grease-coated seal ring onto the protective sleeve. Using the second disc of Special Service Tool KM6105, press the crankshaft seal ring into the timing case using the torsional vibration damper bolt. Then remove the special service tools. Install the torsional vibration damper with a new bolt. And tighten using KMJ 38122A and KM 956-1 as described in the service literature. To check the timing, turn the engine 720 degrees in the direction of rotation. Until the timing case and torsional vibration damper markings are in alignment. The cams of the fourth cylinder should point upwards. Timing can only be checked by means of Special Service Tool KM6148, as the coloured chain links are of no significance once the engine has turned. The pins must fit into the large bores in the camshaft sprockets. If the timing is not correct, the timing chain must be reinstalled. When installing, the lug on the ribbed V-belt tensioner engages into the bore in the timing case. When fitting the ribbed V-belt, note the running direction. Install the cylinder head cover and the ignition module. The balancer shafts are always changed with the engine removed. For this purpose, the engine must be in the fourth cylinder TDC position. Remove the ignition module and the cylinder head cover. The cams of the fourth cylinder point upwards. Remove the ribbed V-belt. The tensioner and the torsional vibration damper. Then, remove the camshaft timing chain tensioner, the upper sliding rail, and the exhaust side camshaft sprocket. Remove the upper bolt of the camshaft timing chain guide rail, the timing case with gasket. The guide rail and the tension rail. Subsequently, loosen the intake side camshaft sprocket and remove together with the camshaft timing chain. Remove the balancer shaft timing chain tensioner. Undo the tension rail, as well as both guide rails. Remove the balancer shaft timing chain. Unscrew the exhaust side balancer shaft. Now, remove the intake side balancer shaft. Caution: the balancer shafts differ in terms of the sprocket position, which means that they must not be transposed. They are marked accordingly. Before fitting, coat the sliding surface of the balancer shafts with oil. The balancer shafts must turn easily. Tighten the fastening bolts for the balancer shafts to the specified torque. Fit the timing chain, starting with the copper-coloured chain link at the marking on the intake side balancer shaft. Position the second light-coloured chain link at the marking on the exhaust side balancer shaft, and the third light-coloured chain link at the marking on the balancer shaft timing chain sprocket. It's now possible to install the two guide rails and the tension rail. Turn and compress the chain tensioner. And lock with special service tool KM6077. Install the chain tensioner. And remove the locking pin. If the markings are not in alignment after installing the chain tensioner, the chain must be refitted. As a further check, the marking on the balancer shaft timing chain sprocket must be at 6 o'clock. The arrow on the exhaust side balancer shaft must point downwards, and the arrow on the intake side balancer shaft upwards. The previous section, removing and installing the cylinder head, provided an in-depth account of installing the camshaft timing chain. After installing the chain tensioner, all markings on the camshaft timing chain must be in alignment. If not, the timing chain must be refitted. Install the timing case. And a new crankshaft seal ring. After installing the torsional vibration damper, turn the engine through 720 degrees at the crankshaft. Until the timing case and torsional vibration damper markings are aligned. The cams of the fourth cylinder point upwards. Install special service tool KM6148 to check the timing. The pins must fit into the large bores in the camshaft sprockets. The coloured chain links no longer have any significance. Continue assembling the engine.